Evraz, Highveld Steel and Vanadium is an integrated steel and vanadium slag producer controlled by the Russian Evraz group. The controlling shareholder in Evraz is Roman Abramovich. Evraz mines ore at its mine operation in Limpopo and produces iron and steel products and vanadium-bearing slag at its plant outside Middleburg in Mpumalanga. Evraz has a market cap of 2.7 billion rand and has no price-to-earnings ratio since it traded at a loss in 2011. Vanadium slag producer.
Of course, yes.
Come. Unpack for me, please, Paul.
So steel, obviously, we know what that is, high carbon steel. Then you start adding stuff to steel to extract specific properties. So vanadium is something that gets added to harden it and to, be able to be used in certain applications, including, saw blades and so on, so forth. So this plant is effectively a vanadium mine which existed in the Mapochs, Limpopo province area. So a steel plant was built. That was the one just outside Middleburg. If you drive from Pretoria to Middleburg, you can't miss it. And then Columbus Steel, which is also just on the other side of Middleburg. These assets were acquired by the Anglo-American group. And when Anglo decided they didn't want to be in South African assets of this ilk anymore, they were sold in two stages to a Russian company called Evraz. The Russian we are talking about, the Roman Abramovich, is the same one that owns Chelsea Football Club. That is one of Russia's richest men, one of the oligarchs. The problem, of course, is this is a small asset. I don't know why it's still listed here, frankly, because it has almost no tradability. It's not
completely illiquid?
No, it's not terrible, considering how little of the stock is in fact traded on the float. So I thought it was actually not bad. I think it's about 500,000 rands of trade goes through a day. But when I say that Roman Abramovich is more interested in the outcome of the Champions League final on Saturday, he's then more interested in his second or third wife, then his yacht in the Mediterranean, finally his gas and oil interests, and only long way down the line comes the Evraz
Rhynhardt,
operation.
in Paul's book, Evraz is a no-go area just because Roman is caught up elsewhere.
Look, I think he does make a very valid point. Look, firstly, the free float, I think of the shares about 15%. And I must say, I also can't quite understand why they are still listed, why Evraz still has the asset. They are a relatively small player, certainly on a global basis, but even in South Africa, Mittal dominates the market. It's not a tier one asset. Their plants are even older than Mittal's. So, if you kind of have your doubts, or if you are skeptical whether Mittal will again make any money, I don't think Evraz will probably ever. And I think from a capital allocation point of view, as a shareholder, you have to ask yourself who is looking after your kind of asset there, who is managing the business. And I would tend to share, I think, Paul's sentiments that I don't think it's high up on the priority list of the parent company. So hence, I'm also actually fairly negative.
Why doesn't Abramovich dispose of it?
Well, I think in the context of Evraz, which is only one of Roman's assets, it's, they're about the 15th largest global steel producer, Evraz is, and they've got plants around the world. So I think, they're doing their best. Mike Garcia, who's the guy who's the CEO of it now, was, he's American, I think. He's the VP in terms of Evraz's global strategy. So I think they're making a go of it. Look, it's worth 2.5 or 2.3 or something billion rand. So it's not an insubstantial asset. And vanadium, understand, gets sold around the world. So the vanadium actually gets sold to other steel producers who want to add vanadium to their steel. So that the profits of the company are not so much a function of how much steel they're selling in this market. It's more a function of what the vanadium price is, which is like $35 a pound or something. So it could do well. And when vanadium prices are high, then it does well. So,
and the profits could be keeping his wife happy, of course.
Well, yeah, by the time they feed up to Roman, I don't think they're really all that significant in terms of his oil and gas interests. Those are vastly larger. But I think unless you're a specialist kind of steel buff and you fancied the vanadium price outlook, this is not really a stock to own.
Rhynhardt, hot or not on Evraz?
I would have to say not. I don't think that... I can't really see the long-term prospects of the company really turning around without real active management. I'm not a major bull, I think, on the vanadium price. Yes, it can maybe tick slightly higher. Maybe buildings in China go up higher, and it tends to use more like vanadium to reinforce them. But on a kind of a short to medium basis, based on what I can see, definitely not.
Paul, hot or not, Evraz?
No, look, I suppose there could just be a bit of a flutter if there were to be a buyout. The other thing that has happened in the past is they do pay big dividends. So if you had your ears close to the ground, maybe you could follow the vanadium price and then figure out when they were going to do a big distribution, but not otherwise.